My name is Elena Moore, and I am 18 years old. The night I turned 18 was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. Instead, it became the night I learned that love can smile at you while quietly taking everything away. It started with candles, 18 of them, tall, thin, burning softly on top of a cake my mother baked herself. Vanilla, my favorite, or at least it used to be. The living room looked warm, almost perfect. Golden lights, family photos on the wall, my parents sitting across from me, smiling too wide, like actors waiting for their cue. Before I continue this story, please let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt like the black sheep in your own family. Trust me, you want to see what happened next. Make a wish, my mother said, clapping her hands softly. I closed my eyes. I wished for freedom. I wished for truth. I wished for a life where I didn't feel like a guest in my own home. I blew out the candles. Everyone cheered. My father poured drinks. My mother hugged me a little too tightly. And then, just when I thought the night would end like any other birthday, my father cleared his throat. "Elena," he said, tapping his glass with a spoon, "now that you're officially an adult, there's something important we need to discuss." My stomach tightened. That feeling, that quiet warning inside me, it started right there. They asked me to sit down. My cake was still untouched. The candles were still smoking. And that's when my mother said the words that changed everything. "We updated our will today." The room went silent. I blinked, updated it. My father nodded calmly, too calmly. Yes, we felt it was time to make some adjustments. I laughed nervously. Adjustments to what? My mother folded her hands in her lap. "To the house, to the savings, to your future." My heart started to pound. I don't understand. They exchanged a look, the kind of look people give when they've already decided your fate. "Elena," my father said, "we think it's best if the house no longer goes to you." I felt like the floor moved under me. "What? The house?" My mother repeated, softer now. "We're transferring it into a family trust. Your uncle will manage it." I stood up. "But you promised. You said when I turned 18, the house would be mine. Grandma left it for me." My father sighed. "You're too young, too emotional. You wouldn't know how to handle something like that. Too emotional." Those words burned more than anything else. "So you waited until my birthday," I said slowly, "until the day I legally become an adult, to take it away." My mother's voice sharpened. "Don't be dramatic." Dramatic. That was the word they used every time I asked questions. Every time I pushed back. Every time I refused to be quiet. "We're still your parents." My father said, "We know what's best." "No," I whispered. "You know what's best for you." My uncle's name echoed in my head. The same uncle who borrowed money and never paid it back. The same uncle who laughed when I said I wanted to study law. I felt betrayed. Not suddenly, not loudly, but slowly, deeply, like something breaking inside my chest. "I want to see the paperwork," I said. My father hesitated, just for a second, long enough. "It's already done," he said. "Signed this morning." This morning, on my birthday. I walked to my room without another word. I closed the door and leaned against it, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor. My hands were shaking. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. "We did this for your own good. You'll understand one day." I stared at the screen, then I laughed, a quiet, broken laugh. They thought I was powerless. They were wrong. What my parents didn't know was that 3 months earlier, when I turned 17 and a half, my grandmother had taken me aside. She was sick, weak, but her eyes were sharp. "Elena," she whispered, pressing a folder into my hands. "If anything ever feels wrong, talk to Mr. Harris." Mr. Harris, her lawyer, the same man who helped her protect this house when everyone else wanted to sell it. I never told my parents about that folder. That night, while the house slept, I opened it again. Old documents, notes in my grandmother's handwriting, and one thing that made my heart stop, a clause that said the house could not be placed into any trust or transferred without my written consent once I turned 18. They rewrote the will, but they forgot one thing. The house wasn't fully theirs to give away. I didn't sleep. At sunrise, I put on a simple dress, tied my hair back, and walked out of the house without saying goodbye. At 8:12 a. I sat across from Mr. Harris in his office. He adjusted his glasses and looked at me carefully. Happy birthday, Elena. I didn't smile. They changed the will. He nodded. I know. That surprised me. You know, they called yesterday, he said, asked if it was legal. My hands clenched and I told them the truth. He said, it wasn't. Hope rose in my chest, fragile but bright. So what do we do? He leaned forward. We do exactly what your grandmother planned for. I swallowed, which is, he slid a document toward me. Once you turn 18, he said, you have the right to act independently, including selling your share. I stared at the paper. Selling the house, yes, he said gently, all of it. My mind raced, images of my childhood, the stairs where I learned to walk, the window where my grandmother used to sit and wave at me, and then I remembered my parents' smiles, their calm voices, the way they said too emotional, how fast, I asked. Mr. Harris looked at me for a long moment, then he said the words that would change everything. We can list it immediately, emergency sale. I took a deep breath. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Do it, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? I nodded. Sell the house. How quickly? I didn't hesitate. Within 12 hours. The pen felt heavy in my hand as I signed my name. But the fear was gone. In its place was something new, something steady. Control at 9:47 a.m. The house my parents thought they owned was officially on the market. They didn't know yet. They were still drinking coffee in the kitchen. Still talking about how I'd cool down, still believing I would come back and apologize. At 10:15 a.m., my phone rang. It was my mother, Elena. She said sharply, "Why did the bank call us?" I smiled for the first time that day. "You rewrote the will," I said calmly, "so I rewrote my future." There was silence on the line, and that was just the beginning. By noon, the house was no longer just a house. It was a ticking clock. My mother's silence on the phone didn't last long. 15 minutes later, she called again. This time, she didn't bother pretending to be calm. "What did you do?" she demanded. I was sitting in a small cafe across the street from Mr. Harris's office. My hands were wrapped around a cup of coffee I hadn't touched. Outside, people walked by, laughing, living normal lives. Inside me, everything felt sharp and awake. "I told you," I said quietly. "I rewrote my future." "You have no right," she snapped. "That house is ours." I let out a slow breath. Funny, that's exactly what Grandma said people would say. Her voice wavered for a second, just a second. "You're being manipulated." "No," I said. "I was educated." The line went dead. I didn't feel victory. Not yet. What I felt was sadness, the kind that sits heavy in your chest, because no matter how strong you become, it still hurts when your parents choose control over love. Mr. Harris texted me a few minutes later. "We have interest, strong interest." My heart skipped already. I typed back, "Yes, cash buyer, wants a fast close." Fast, that word echoed in my mind. Fast meant no time for my parents to interfere. No time for guilt trips or sudden apologies. "Proceed," I replied at 1:30 p.m. My father walked into the cafe. I saw him before he saw me. His shoulders were tense. His eyes darted around the room until they landed on me. For a moment he looked small, older than I remembered. "Elena," he said, pulling out a chair without asking. "We need to talk." "I'm listening." I said. "You're making a mistake," he said immediately. "A huge one." I tilted my head. "Is that what you said when you changed the will?" His jaw tightened. "We were protecting you." "From what?" I asked. "From owning my own life." He leaned closer. "From yourself." There it was again. The same sentence, the same belief that I was something that needed to be managed. "I'm 18. I said, "I can vote. I can sign contracts. I can decide what happens to what's legally mine." "You're acting out of anger," he said. "No," I replied. "I'm acting out of clarity." He slammed his hand on the table, making nearby customers glance over. "That house is our family's legacy." I met his eyes. "Then you should have treated me like family." For the first time, he didn't have an answer. Instead, he tried something else. His voice softened. "If you stop this, we can talk. We can revise things. Maybe put the house back in your name later. Later, always later. I shook my head. You already showed me who you are. He stood up abruptly. You'll regret this. Maybe I would, but regret felt lighter than betrayal. At 3:00 p.m., my uncle showed up at Mr. Harris's office. He didn't knock. He burst in, red-faced and loud. You little snake, he shouted when he saw me. You think you're clever. Mr. Harris stood between us calmly. Sir, you need to leave. You filled her head with nonsense. My uncle said, pointing at me, that house was supposed to be mine to manage. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Manage, I repeated. Is that what you call draining accounts and losing keys? His face darkened. Watch your mouth. No, I said firmly. You watch yours. Security escorted him out, still yelling about respect and family. When the door closed, the room felt lighter. Are you okay? Mr. Harris asked. I nodded. Better than okay. At 4:20 p.m., the offer came in, full price, no conditions, immediate deposit. Mr. Harris looked at me. Once I submit this, there's no turning back. I thought of my grandmother, her hands, her voice, the way she said my name like it mattered. Submit it, I said. At 5:00 p.m., my mother sent me a message. You're tearing this family apart. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I typed back, you tore it apart when you chose power over trust. She didn't reply. As the sun began to set, my phone buzzed nonstop. Relatives, family, friends, people who never called before suddenly had opinions. She's ungrateful. She's too young. She'll come crawling back. Each message felt like proof that I was doing the right thing. Because none of them asked how I felt, they only cared about what they were losing. At 7:45 p.m., Mr. Harris shook my hand. Congratulations, he said. The house is officially under contract. I felt something release inside me. A knot I didn't even know I was holding, but freedom always comes with a cost. At 9:10 p.m., I went back to the house one last time to collect my things. My parents were waiting. The lights were off except for the living room. They sat on the couch like strangers. My mother stood up when she saw me. How could you do this to us? I placed my bag by the door. How could you do it to me? My father spoke quietly. Where will you go? I'll figure it out, I said. I always do. My mother's eyes filled with tears, real tears this time. You didn't have to hurt us. I felt my own eyes burn. I didn't want to, but you left me no choice. Silence stretched between us. Then my father said something that changed everything. You know, he said slowly, we can still stop this. If you sign a statement saying you were pressured, the sale can be delayed. I froze. Pressured? Yes, he continued. We'll say the lawyer influenced you, that you weren't thinking clearly. My heart sank, even now, even after everything. They were still trying to take my voice. I picked up my bag. No, I said, I won't lie to save your pride. My mother sobbed. My father looked away. As I walked out, I felt grief and strength walking side by side. Outside, the night air was cold. I took one last look at the house, not with anger, not with love, but with acceptance. At 11:58 p.m., my phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. If you don't stop the sale, you'll regret it. No name, no explanation, just a threat. I stared at the screen, my heart beat steady this time. Because they still didn't understand one thing. I wasn't afraid anymore. I didn't reply to the message, not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something very clearly. People only threaten you when they're losing. That night, I stayed at a small hotel near the city center. The room smelled like clean sheets and cheap soap. It wasn't home, but it was quiet, and for the first time in my life, quiet felt safe. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the unknown number in my head. If you don't stop the sale, you'll regret it. Regret how? Regret losing people who already chose money over me. Regret protecting myself around 2 a.m. My phone buzzed again, same number. You think you're strong? You're still just a child. I felt anger rise in my chest, hot and sharp, but I didn't respond. I turned the phone face down and closed my eyes because strength isn't about shouting back. It's about staying steady when others try to shake you. At 7:30 the next morning, Mr. Harris called. Elena, he said, his voice serious, I need you to listen carefully. My heart skipped. What happened? Your parents filed a complaint, he said. They're claiming emotional distress and outside influence. I closed my eyes. There it was, the lie my father mentioned. Will it work? I asked. No, he replied firmly, but it will slow things down, and it tells me they're desperate. Desperate people do reckless things. Do I need to come in? I asked. Yes, he said, and Elena, bring any messages you've received, especially threats. An hour later, I was back in his office, the same chair, the same desk, but I felt different now, more awake, more aware. I showed him the messages. He frowned. This is intimidation. From who? I asked. That's what we'll find out. He said. By noon, the buyer's lawyer was involved. Calm, professional, unbothered. Your parents have no legal ground, she said over speakerphone. This sale will go through. A relief washed over me, but it didn't last long. At 1:45 p.m., my mother showed up again, alone this time. She looked tired. Her eyes were red, her hair messy. She didn't look powerful anymore. Elena, she whispered when she saw me, please. I didn't stand. I didn't hug her. I just waited. She sat down slowly. Your father is falling apart. I said nothing. He can't sleep. She continued. He keeps saying he failed you. The words hit me harder than I expected, not because I believed them, but because part of me wanted to. Then why is he lying about me? I asked. She flinched. We're scared. She said, we didn't think you'd fight back. There it was, the truth. You didn't think I'd stand up for myself. I said. She nodded, tears falling freely now. We thought if we controlled things early, you'd be safe. Safe from what? I asked. She hesitated, then she said it, from leaving us. The room went quiet. I felt something soften inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. You could have trusted me. I said, instead, you tried to trap me. She reached for my hand. I pulled it back gently. I still love you, she said. I know. I replied, but love without respect feels like a cage. She broke down then. Quiet sobs, no drama, no yelling, just regret. When she left, she didn't threaten. She didn't argue. She just looked back at me and said, I hope one day you forgive us. I didn't answer. That evening, I learned who sent the threats. My uncle. The buyer's background check uncovered his recent debts. The house sale would expose them. He was counting on managing the property to cover his mistakes. Mr. Harris shook his head. He thought fear would stop you. I smiled faintly. It didn't. At 6:30 p.m., my phone rang again. This time it was my father. Elena, he said quietly, I won't fight anymore. I held my breath. The house is yours to sell. He continued, I was wrong. I waited for the condition. It didn't come. I just wanted you to stay, he said. Tears slid down my cheeks, silent ones. I'm not disappearing. I said, I'm just becoming myself. The line went quiet. Then he said, I'm proud of you. Those words. They came late, but they still mattered. At 8:00 p.m., the intimidation complaint was officially filed against my uncle. At 9:15 p.m., the buyer transferred the deposit. The house was no longer a battlefield. It was closure. I walked through the city that night, lights glowing around me, people everywhere, lives crossing without colliding. I realized something then. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's calm. Legal, clean. It's choosing yourself without destroying anyone else. But my story wasn't over yet, because freedom has a way of revealing hidden truths, and the biggest betrayal hadn't even surfaced. The next morning felt strangely peaceful. No shouting, no ringing phone, no fear sitting on my chest. Just sunlight slipping through the hotel curtains and the quiet hum of a city that didn't know my name or my past. I should have felt relief, and I did, but under it, something else was growing, a question, a feeling that not everything had been said yet. That feeling followed me when I met Mr. Harris later that day. Elena, he said carefully, now that the house situation is almost resolved, there's something else we need to discuss. My stomach tightened. Something bad, something hidden. He replied. He pulled out another folder. Thinner, older. This came up during the buyer's audit. He continued, "It wasn't about the house. It was about you." I felt my pulse quicken. About me how? He opened the folder and slid a document across the desk. A trust record with my name on it, but not just my name. Another name sat beside it. My cousin's. I frowned. "What is this?" Mr. Harris exhaled slowly. "It's an education and inheritance fund created when you were 12. I blinked. "I've never seen this." "No," he said, "because it was never meant for you to see." My throat went dry. "How much?" He didn't answer right away. He just turned the page. The number made my breath catch. It was more than the house was worth. "Where did this come from?" I whispered, "Your grandmother." He said, "She sold her second property quietly years ago. The money was placed here." My hands trembled. Then why wasn't it for me alone? "Because," he said gently, "your parents requested changes." The room felt suddenly smaller. "They split it," he continued. "You were listed as beneficiary, but not primary." I felt dizzy. "So where did the money go?" "Your cousin's education," he said. "Private schools, overseas programs, living expenses." Memories rushed back. My cousin's trips, new cars, a life of ease, while I worked part-time jobs. While I was told we couldn't afford certain things, they used Grandma's money. I said slowly, "Yes." Mr. Harris replied, "Without telling you." Something cracked inside me, not anger this time, something deeper. "Grief, she wanted that money for you," he added. "She trusted them to honor that." I pressed my hands flat on the desk. "Did they break the law?" "Not exactly," he said. "They bent it and hid it." I left the office numb. The betrayal wasn't just about a house. It was about years of lies. That evening, I asked my parents to meet me. Neutral place, public, no shouting. They arrived together, nervous, guarded. I placed the folder on the table. "What is this?" I asked. My mother's face drained of color. My father didn't pretend. He just closed his eyes. "You used Grandma's money." I said, "The money she saved for me." My mother whispered, "We thought it was better shared." "Shared?" I repeated. "You gave most of it away." My father leaned forward. "Your cousin needed it more." The words hit me like a slap. "Needed it more than me." I asked quietly. "You were strong," he said, "independent." I laughed. "A broken sound, so you punished me for surviving." They had no answer. "You didn't trust me." I continued. "You controlled me, you took from me, and you called it love." My mother reached for my arm. I pulled back. "I'm done." I said. "What does that mean?" My father asked. "It means," I said slowly, "I'm not staying quiet anymore." They looked at me confused. "You rewrote the will." I continued. "You hid money. You tried to scare me into silence." I met their eyes one by one. I won't let it go. The fear in their faces told me they finally understood. I stood up. "This isn't revenge," I said. "It's truth." As I walked away, I felt something shift. This wasn't just about protecting myself anymore. It was about exposing what they did, and for the first time I realized justice doesn't always come from courts. Sometimes it comes from light, and I was ready to turn it on. That night I didn't sleep, not because I was afraid, but because my mind wouldn't stop replaying everything I had ignored for years. Every time I was told to be patient, every time I was called mature for my age, every time I was praised for asking for less. It all made sense now. I wasn't being raised to grow. I was being trained to stay quiet. At 6 a.m., I sent an email to Mr. Harris. "I want everything, every record, every transaction, every signature." He replied 10 minutes later. "I was hoping you'd say that." By noon, I was sitting in his office again, surrounded by files stacked like bricks, years of paper, years of choices made without me. "This is bigger than the house," he said. "And bigger than the trust." "How big?" I asked. He slid one final document across the table, a loan, taken out in my name. I stared at it. "I never signed this." "No," he said, "but your parents did, when you were 16. My hands started to shake. "That's illegal." "Yes," he said, "very. The amount wasn't huge, but the damage was. They used your identity to cover debts," he continued, "your uncle's debts." I felt sick. So that's why my credit was locked, I whispered. That's why they always handled my mail, yes, he said quietly. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't protection. This was theft. I want to press charges, I said. Mr. Harris studied me. Once you do, there's no going back. I already left, I replied. They just didn't notice. The legal process started fast, too fast for my parents to spin stories. By evening, my mother was calling again. Over and over, I didn't answer. Then my father texted, "We can fix this privately." Privately, that word again. I typed back, "No more secrets." The next few days felt unreal. Letters, meetings, quiet conversations in offices with glass walls. My parents stopped calling. My uncle disappeared, and then something unexpected happened. My cousin called. "Elena," she said softly. "I didn't know. I believed her. I thought Grandma helped my parents." She continued, "I didn't know it was your money." I sighed. None of us were told the truth. "I'll give it back," she said quickly, "all of it." That was more than I expected. "Thank you," I said, but this isn't about money anymore. It was about patterns. Control, silence. A week later, the house sale closed. The money hit my account quietly. Clean, legal, no celebration, just relief. I rented a small apartment, simple, bright, mine. The first night there, I sat on the floor eating takeout and laughed out loud. Freedom tasted strange. Then the final blow came. A letter from the bank. The loan in my name was officially flagged as fraud. An investigation was opened. My parents were summoned. They didn't come to me this time. They went to Mr. Harris, and he told them the truth. Elena isn't scared anymore. I ran into my mother by accident a few days later, outside a grocery store. She looked smaller, quieter. "We never meant to hurt you," she said. "I know," I replied, "but you did." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I hope one day you understand," she whispered. I looked at her, really looked. "I do," I said. "That's why I won't repeat it." That night, I stood on my apartment balcony, city lights blinking below. I thought about revenge. I thought about justice, and I realized something important. Revenge wants pain. Justice wants truth, and truth changes everything. But my story wasn't finished yet, because consequences were coming. And they don't knock politely. Consequences arrived quietly, not with sirens, not with shouting, but with envelopes, white, thick, official. One by one, they landed on my parents' doorstep. Notices, requests, summons, each one stripping away the comfort they had built on silence. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I just watched from a distance. Mr. Harris kept me updated, always careful with his words. "Your parents are cooperating," he said during one call. "They're saying they were trying to protect family stability." I closed my eyes. That excuse again. "Yes," he replied, "but it's not holding." The investigation moved fast because the evidence was clear. Signatures, transfers, patterns, and patterns are hard to explain away. One afternoon, my father asked to meet me, alone. I agreed. We sat on a park bench under a gray sky, the kind of sky that feels heavy but honest. He looked tired, not angry, not defensive, just tired. "I failed you," he said. I didn't interrupt. I thought control meant safety. He continued, "My parents were strict. I thought that's how you keep a family together." I nodded slowly. "And did it work?" He shook his head. "No." Silence sat between us. "They're asking questions at work." He added quietly, "People are looking at me differently." I felt a flicker of something, not joy, not pity, reality. "I didn't want this," he said. "I wanted to fix things quietly. I wanted honesty." I replied, "Years ago." He looked at me then, really looked. "You're stronger than I ever was," he said. I stood up. "Strength isn't control," I said. "It's letting go." We parted without hugging, without promises, and somehow that felt right. The truth spread faster than I expected. Family members stopped whispering. They started asking. My aunt called to apologize. A cousin sent a long message admitting they always felt something was off. Even my grandmother's old friends reached out. She'd be proud. One of them wrote. That message stayed with me. One evening, I opened the folder with my grandmother's handwriting again, the one she gave me before she passed. At the bottom of a page, I noticed something I hadn't before. A sentence: if they ever try to silence you, speak louder, even if your voice shakes. I cried then, not from pain, from being seen. The investigation ended quietly. My parents weren't destroyed, but they were exposed. They had to repay what they took. Publicly, legally, no prison, no drama, just accountability, and accountability changes people. My uncle vanished from family events. My parents downsized their life. No more pretending. As for me, I started school, law, not out of anger, out of clarity. I wanted to be the person my grandmother trusted, the person I needed when I was younger. One night, months later, my mother sent a final message. "I hope you're happy." I typed back, "I'm free," and I meant it. But stories like mine don't end with closure. They end with reflection, and I still had something to say. One final truth, one final lesson. Freedom didn't arrive like fireworks. It arrived like a deep breath I didn't know I had been holding for years. Months passed, quiet ones, real ones. I learned the sound of my own footsteps in my apartment. I learned how peace feels when no one is watching your choices, measuring them, correcting them. I stopped flinching when my phone rang. I stopped explaining myself. Law school was hard, long nights. Heavy books, doubt creeping in when exhaustion hit. But every time I questioned myself, I remembered that 18-year-old girl sitting across from a lawyer, refusing to be erased. That girl carried me forward. One afternoon, while studying in the library, I received a message from my father. Not a request, not an apology, a thank you. You forced me to see myself. I didn't like what I saw, but I needed to. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "I hope you choose better now." He did not respond, and that was okay, because closure doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means understanding. A year later, I stood in front of my grandmother's grave. Fresh flowers in my hands, the same ones she used to keep by the window. I did it. I whispered. I didn't stay quiet. The wind moved through the trees softly, like a reply. I thought about revenge. How tempting it felt at first, how powerful anger can be when it finally wakes up. But revenge alone would have left me empty. What saved me wasn't punishment, it was truth. Truth turned fear into strength. Truth turned silence into voice. Truth turned control into freedom. I learned something important through all of this. Sometimes the people who hurt you aren't monsters. They're afraid of losing control. Afraid of change, afraid of facing themselves, but fear is never an excuse to break trust, especially not with your own child. If you're listening to my story right now, I want you to hear this clearly. If someone takes your voice and calls it love, if someone limits your future and calls it protection, if someone benefits from your silence, that isn't care, that's control, and you are allowed to walk away from it. You are allowed to choose yourself. I didn't destroy my family. I stopped letting them destroy me, and in doing so, I finally honored the woman who believed in me before I ever believed in myself. My name is Elena Moore. I was 18 years old when they rewrote the will, and I was 18 years old when I rewrote my life. Silence protects power. Truth protects you.